Hello everyone. Today we are going to do CAT 2024 slot 2 and RC number 2. पहले हम 2024 का slot 1 कर चुके हैं. आज हम ये दो RC करेंगे slot number 2 से. The first RC that we are going to do, it is on the screen, which is regarding uh, spices were a global commodity. ये जो पहला RC है ये spice trade के बारे में दिया गया है. दूसरा वाला जो आरसी है वो ह्यूमन एनिमल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के बारे में है. सो बोथ द सब्जेक्ट्स आर नॉट वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डू. क्वेश्चंस इन दिस पर्टिकुलर आरसीज आर आल्सो नॉट वेरी टफ. चलिए हम स्टार्ट करते हैं. फर्स्ट हम क्या करेंगे, फर्स्ट हम ये आरसी को पढ़ेंगे. वी विल रीड दिस पर्टिकुलर आरसी, देन वी विल सॉल्व द पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चंस टुगेदर. चलिए लेट्स स्टार्ट द फर्स्ट टू पैराग्राफ्स. It says spices were a global commodity centuries before European voyages. There was a complex chain of relations, yet consumers had little knowledge of producers and vice versa. Desire for spices helped fuel European colonial empires to create political, military, and commercial networks under a single power. So, देखिए फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में क्या बोला जा रहा है. फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ टॉक्स अबाउट स्पाइसेस and its particular demand as well as supply in the market. It talks about ग्लोबलाइजेशन, ग्लोबल कम्युनिटी होने से पहले भी स्पाइसेस का डिमांड बहुत ज्यादा था. Then it says historians know a fair amount about the supply of spices in Europe during the medieval period. The origin, the methods of transportation, the prices, but less about demand. डिमांड के बारे में उन लोगों को ज्यादा पता नहीं था. Why go to such extraordinary efforts to procure expensive products from exotic lands? Now, exotic lands are those lands from where they got the spices. And इसका कारण क्या था, ये स्पाइसेस लाने के लिए वो इतना से फॉर एग्जांपल दूर दूर तक जाते थे, इसका कारण क्या था. Still, demand was great enough to inspire the voyage of Christopher Columbus and Vasco da Gama, launching the first fateful wave of European colonialism. So, people like Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus made their journeys in search of spices from distant lands, and it was the first starting point of European colonialism. The colonialism stands for capturing other particular places by the European powers. Going forward to the third paragraph, it says, so why were spices so highly priced in Europe in the centuries from 1000 to 1500? One widely disseminated explanation for medieval demand for spices was that they covered the taste of spoiled meat. Now, we are talking here about why the demand of spices were so high. इतना जरूरत क्यों था spices को यूरोप में. It says that उसका जो खाना था, खाना खराब हो जाता था. In the next line it says medieval purchasers consumed meat much fresher than the average city dweller in the developed world of today has at hand. However, refrigeration was not available, and some hot spices have been shown to serve as an antibacterial agent. So one of the reasons why spices was required, because there was no fridge, there was no refrigerator, प्रिजर्वेशन का कोई तरीका इन लोगों के पास था नहीं. सो खाना ठीक रखने के लिए दे वांटेड सम स्पाइसेस. Then it says salting, smoking, or drying meat were other means of preservation. Most spices used in cooking began as medical ingredients, and throughout the Middle Ages, spices were used as both medicines and condiments. So ये spices का दूसरा usage के बारे में बोल रहा है, which is as medicines. Above all, medieval recipes involved the combination of medical and culinary lore in order to balance food's humoral properties and prevent disease. Most spices were hot and dry and so appropriate in sauces to counteract the moist and wet properties supposedly possessed by most meat and fish. So देखिए अभी हम बोल रहे थे कि the paragraph number 2 says that historian को किस बारे में पता है, इस सप्लाई के बारे में तो पता था, but the demand वाला part they were not clear why there was so much demand of spices. ये थर्ड पैराग्राफ हमें समझाता है कि the demand for spices was because of medical as well as culinary food related requirements for preservation for medical particular purposes. Is everybody clear till the third paragraph? Okay, चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. The last two paragraphs, the fourth paragraph, it says Where spices came from was known in a vague sense centuries before the voyages of Columbus. Columbus जर्नी करने से पहले स्पाइसेस के बारे में वो कहाँ से आता है इसके बारे में लोगों को पता था. Just how vague may be judged by looking at medieval world maps. To the medieval European imagination, the East was exotic and alluring. Medieval maps often place India close to the so-called earthly paradise, the Garden of Eden described in the Bible. So basically, first line says that लोगों को पता था ये spices कहाँ से आ रहा है. Then it clarifies that ये जो knowledge था वो कहाँ से आ रहा है वो उतना अच्छा नहीं था. It was very vague. The second sentence of this paragraph says just how vague may be judged by looking at medieval world map. So this knowledge was not at all clear and it was a bit mythical by nature. Going to the next part, it says geographical knowledge has a lot to do with the perceptions of spices, relative scarcity, and reasons for their high price. An example of the varying notions of scarcity is the conflicting information how पेपर इज हार्वेस्टेड. देखिए ये सब स्टोरीज है जो यूरोपियन के पास मेडिवल टाइम में थे. दे आर नॉट ऑलवेज ट्रू, दे आर ऑल काइंड ऑफ मिथ्स, बट इट इज काइंड ऑफ इन्वॉल्विंग the demand for prices, why the spices demand was so high, why the supply was kind of not there. These particular stories revolve around all these things. It says, as far back as the 7th century, European thought that paper in India grew on trees, guarded by serpents that would bite and poison anyone who attempted to gather the fruit. The only way to harvest paper was to burn the tree, which would drive the snakes underground. Of course, this bit of lore would explain the shriveled black peppercorns, but not white pepper or other colors. So it is talking about a story where the pepper tree is being guarded by a snake, and it is maybe it kind of accounts for the scarcity of paper and kind of lack of supply of papers, why it is so expensive, and all these things. Last paragraph says spices never had the enduring allure of power of gold and silver or the commercial potential of new products such as tobacco, indigo, or sugar. But the taste of spices did continue for a while beyond the Middle Ages. As late as 17th century, the English Dutch were struggling for control of the Spice Islands. Dutch New Amsterdam or New York was exchanged by British for one of the Moluccan Islands where nutmeg was grown. Now, this particular paragraph says that spices का जो allure था, जो attraction था, जो demand था, वो शायद gold and gold जैसा gold silver जैसा नहीं था. It was not as kind of strong as gold, silver, or tobacco, indigo, or sugar. But still, it continues. Its demand for the demand for spices continued in, say, for example, as late as 17th century. So overall, the paragraph talks about spices, its demand, its supplies, the various reasons why it became important, and the various tales and the folklores uh, involved with these particular spices. सबके लिए clear हुआ is the spice. I hope this passage is not very difficult to understand because the language here is also kind of quite lucid and the thought is also not very difficult. चलिए अभी हम क्वेश्चन पे चलेंगे. Let us go to the questions. If we go to the questions, first question देखिए, first question says it can be inferred, it can be inferred that all the following contributed to a decline in the allure of spices except. What does the question say? The question says that all the following contribute to the decline in the allure of spices. The spices का जो demand था, जो attraction था, वो कब हो गया? Why what which one of the following is not mentioned here? देखिए इसका डिमांड किस लिए था. एक इसका डिमांड इसलिए था, if we go to this particular second paragraph, it talks about the refrigeration wala part. It is in the third paragraph. If I go to this particular paragraph, it says, so why was cigarettes so highly priced in Europe? If I go to this particular paragraph, it talks about refrigeration. Refrigeration was not available. Now, since refrigeration came later onwards, the demand for this fell. So if I go option number 1, the development of refrigeration technique, this can be a reason why there is a decline in the allure of spices. Similarly, if I continue in the same particular pattern, C and D, that is change in the system of medical treatment and changes in European cuisine, both can be derived from the same paragraph. If I talk about this line, above all medical recipes involve combination medical culinary, and the entire particular paragraph talks about this thing. These are the reasons. So once they changed, the demand for spices also declined. So the only answer which we are left with is option number B, increase in the availability of spices. Now in this paragraph, there is nothing mentioned regarding increase in the availability of spices. And hence, my correct answer is going to be option number B. B is the correct answer for question number 1. Is everybody clear with question number 1? Okay, let's go to question number 2. Question number 2 says, in context of the passage, the people who heard the story of paper trees being guarded by snakes would be least likely to arrive at the conclusion that. देखिए ये least like guarded, the tree being guarded by the snake, ये कहाँ पे मिलेगा? देखिए, if you come to this part, this talks about the tree being guarded by the snakes. So if I go through the options, option 1 says this, that is why paper is so hot. Paper is costly for a good reason. It is not advisable to go to India to harvest the paper themselves. And D, it is not no surprise the paper supply is so limited. पकड़ लीजिए, if a tree is being guarded by a snake, कोई सांप अगर उसको guard कर रहा है, तो definitely it will not be suggested that आप वहां पे जाइए. So option number C, it is not advisable to go to India to harvest the paper themselves, is absolutely true. Option number D says it is no surprise the paper supply is so limited. Definitely अगर snake है तो supply कम होगा. Paper is costly for good reasons. अगर supply कम है तो it will be costly. And hence B, C, D can be derived from this particular given paragraph, the second last paragraph. The question says would be least likely to arrive at the conclusion. Option number 1 says, or option number A says, this is why paper is so hot. Now इसके साथ पेपर हॉट होने का कोई पर्टिकुलर कनेक्शन नहीं है. Neither has it been mentioned in the given paragraph. And hence, question number 2, correct answer will be option number A. Is everybody clear with this one? Now, if we move on to question number 3, it says, in the context of the passage, which one of the following cannot be reached? Now, if you look at question number 3, option number 1 says the spice trade was a driver of colonial expansion. So we find this in the first paragraph itself, where it says, if I go to the first paragraph, it says desire for the spices helped fuel European colonial empires to create political, military, and commercial networks under simple power. So point number 1 can be derived. Point number 2 says India was colonized for spices and gold. Now, yes, spices is kind of found, but nowhere is gold found. So question number 3, option number B will be the correct answer for question number 3. Now, अगर दूसरा option भी check करना है, if I go to C and D, C says tobacco was more marketable than spice. Then you find this particular part in this particular paragraph. In this particular part, colonialism was motivated with the demand for spices. ये भी यही particular first paragraph से derive हो. So option number B, India was colonized by spices and gold. Spices is okay, but gold के बारे में कोई mention नहीं है, and hence 3, option number B will be the correct answer. Is everybody clear with question number 3? Please use selection as well as elimination while you are choosing the correct answers. If I go to the fourth particular question, it says, if a trader bought white paper corns from India to medieval Europe, all the following are unlikely to happen except. Let's go to this particular paragraph, which says that geographical knowledge wala part. It says that geographical knowledge has a lot to do with the perception of spices, relative scarcity, and the reasons for their high prices. Example of the varying notions of scarcity is a conflict information about how paper is harvested. As far back as the 7th century, Europeans thought that paper and grew on trees guarded by serpents. that would bite and poison anyone who attempted to gather the fruit. Matlab, the snake would not allow people to collect the particular paper from the tree. Then it says the only way to harvest paper was to burn the tree. एक ही उपाय था, वो पेड़ को जला देंगे तो सांप भी जल जाएगा and you can harvest the particular paper corn, which would drive the snakes underground. Of course, this bit of lore would have explained shriveled black peppercorns, but not the white, pink, or other colors. So once you burn the trees, there's a particular crumpling on the peppercorns, which is found in the black peppercorns. But the other ones, white, pink, and other colors, did not have this kind of marking. So if I go through this particular option, it says medieval maps would be used as navigation aid. No, it has got no connection. Option number B, Europeans would doubt the story of paper harvesting. Now, what is the question saying? They have what? White peppercorn. Now, white peppercorn ke saath, if I put this particular story, burning of the tree and the particular shriveled black peppercorn, it is not possible with the white peppercorn. And hence, this story becomes incredible. So if four kind of is true that they have got white peppercorns, they will doubt the story that is of the snake guarding this particular tree and the burning thereafter. So question number 4, correct answer is going to be option number B. So with this, we come to the end of the first paragraph or the first passage. Is everybody clear with all the questions? एक बार check कर लो. In case you want to check the particular video once again, please pause the video and check it so that you can understand. चलिए अभी हम चले जाएंगे नेक्स्ट आरसी पे. देखिए सब्जेक्ट इसका पूरा अलग है. इट्स अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट. व्हाट इज द सब्जेक्ट? इट इज अबाउट man's encounter with carnivores animals or human का particular encounter with tigers, lions and all these particular species. It's a very common problem that we have nowadays because the land is becoming less, human habitation is cropping up on the forest. So इसी कारण ये सब encroachment हो रहा है and there are clashes between human and animals. ये paragraph उसी के बारे में है. चलिए हम इसको पढ़ना चालू करते हैं. Let us start reading this paragraph. It says there are 3 other common drivers for carnivore human attacks, some of which are more preventable than others. Natural aggression based conflicts, such as those involving females protecting their young or animals protecting a food source, can often be avoided as long as people stay away from those animals and their food. So basically, जब तक human beings कार्निवोर्स और एनिमल्स का फूड के आसपास में नहीं जा रहा है, उसका बच्चा जहाँ पे है वहाँ पे नहीं जा रहा है, तब तक ये पर्टिकुलर जो एनकाउंटर्स है बिटवीन एनिमल्स एंड ह्यूमंस उसको हम अवॉइड कर सकते हैं. कमिंग टू द सेकंड पैराग्राफ, इट सेज कार्निवोर्स दैट रिकॉग्नाइज ह्यूमंस एज ए मींस टू गेट फूड आर ए डिफरेंट स्टोरी. मतलब जो शेर ह्यूमन को देख रहा है एज फूड, वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट कैन नॉट बी अवॉइडेड. As they become more reliant on human food, they might find at campsites or in rubbish bins, they become less avoidant of humans. Losing that instinctive fear response put them into more situations where they could get into altercation with humans, which often results in the bear being put down by humans. So what does it mean? Uh, in the animals, there is fear of humans. पर वो fear अगर धीरे धीरे चला जाता है, then there's a particular problem, then the conflicts are going to happen between humans and animals. Then it says a fed bear is a dead bear. इसका मतलब है when humans feed a particular bear, slowly it is kind of finishing of the fear that a bear has towards humans. So धीरे धीरे ये चल जाएगा तो conflict के chances बढ़ जाएगा. And hence it is saying a fed bear is a dead bear, says Servine, referring to a common saying among biologists and conservationists. Predatory or predation related attacks are quite rare, only accounting for 17% of attacks in North America since 1955. They occur when carnivore views a human prey and hunts it like it would any other animal it uses for food. So the first 2 paragraphs, I guess everybody's clear with the first 2 paragraphs. It is drawing the particular base word for how this particular carnivores and humans have conflict with each other. Going to the third paragraph, it says, then there are animal attacks provoked by people taking pictures with them or feeding them in natural settings such as national parks, which often end with animals being euthanized out of precaution. Now, what is this particular thing talking about? People go there and take pictures with animals that provokes the animals and they attack. And they have to be kind of made unconscious. Eventually, that animal becomes habituated to people and then bad things happen to the animal. And the folks who initially wanted to make that connection doesn't necessarily realize that. It's Christine Wilkinson, a postdoctoral research at UC Berkeley, California, who's been studying coyote-human conflicts. So basically, ये एक chain है. Human beings go, they want to be friendly with kind of wild animals. Now, the more this particular wild animal becomes familiar with humans, their fear of humans goes away, and eventually they start attacking humans for food. So this particular thing should have been avoided by the humans in the very first place. Are we clear with this third paragraph? चलिए fourth paragraph बोल रहा है, after conducting countless post-mortems on all types of carnivore human attacks spanning 75 years, Pantherini's team believes 50% could have been avoided if humans reacted differently. So ये जो researcher है वो बोल रहा है कि 50% of these attacks could have been avoided. 50% ये जो particular attack है ये हम avoid कर सकते थे अगर humans had behaved in a different way or in a bit more responsible way. A 2017 study co-authored by Paternis found that engaging in risky behavior around large carnivores increase the likelihood of an attack. So, if there's a carnivore around, and if we are kind of moving around casually around that carnivore, then it might lead to problems. Two of the most common risky behaviors of parents leaving their children to play outside unattended and walking an unleashed dog, according to the study. Wilkinson says 66% of coyote attacks involve a dog. People end up in a situation where their dog is being chased, or their dog chases a coyote, or maybe they're walking their dog near a den that's marked and the coyote wants to escort them away, says Wilkinson. So basically, देखिए, according to this researcher, ये animal human conflict होने का two of the major reasons is, एक बच्चे को लेके बच्चे को छोड़ देना where there are particular animals around, and putting your particular dog kind of out of the leash, उसको बांध के ना रखना, उसको छोड़ देना. And if these two are there, these two situations happen regarding children and kind of dogs, then the attack of then the risk of kind of human and animal conflict becomes far higher. Experts believe climate change also plays a part in escalation of human carnivore conflict. The correlation still needs to be ironed out. As finite resources become scarcer, carnivores and people are coming into more frequent contact, which means that more conflict could occur, said Jane Miller, international program specialist for the US Fish and Wildlife Services. For example, she says there was an uptick in lion attacks in Western India during a drought when lions and people were relying on the same water source. So यहाँ पे और एक कारण दर्शाया जा रहा है, यहाँ पे बोला जा रहा है कि ये जो क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है, इस क्लाइमेट चेंज के कारण ह्यूमन एनिमल कन्फ्लिक्ट बढ़ रहा है. And there's an example that I have given of lions attacking in Western India during a time of drought, जहाँ पे humans and animals एक ही जगह से पानी यूज कर रहे थे, वहां पे इस पर्टिकुलर अटैक ज्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. नेचुरल है, अगर दोनों एक ही जगह से पानी यूज करेंगे तो दे हैव टू बी इन द विसिनिटी ऑफ ईच अदर एंड हेंस द अटैक इंक्रीजेस. The last paragraph, it says the likelihood of human carnivore conflict appears to be higher in areas of low income countries dominated by vast rural landscape and farmland, according to Panterini's research. There are lots of working landscape in the global south that are totally heterogeneous, that are interspersed with carnivore habits, forests and savannas, which creates a lot more opportunity for these encounters, just statistically, says Wilkinson. So these attacks, these human and animal attacks, are more when we are talking about poor countries where the land pattern is very heterogeneous. Mixed of land is there, habitable land, agricultural land, forest land, they are close to each other. That's the situation where these kind of attacks become more frequent. Okay, so we have gone through this particular paragraph. I hope this paragraph is not very difficult, and actually it is not. In terms of the subject, in terms of the word that has been used and the language, it is quite doable. So let us go to the first question of the given paragraph. Question says, according to the passage, what is the significant factor that contributes to the habituation of carnivores to human presence? Now, what does this question mean? It means, let's focus on this particular line. It says that habituation of carnivores to human presence. So it means that what are the situations where the carnivores become very familiar to humans? Now, आप carnivore के साथ kind of interact करेंगे, you will try to feed them, then only these particular things will become very common. Now, if you come to this particular third paragraph, it says, eventually that animal becomes habituated to people, necessarily realize what's and habituated to people, and then bad things happen to the animal. So this particular paragraph says, हम पार्क में जाते हैं, एनिमल को खिलाते हैं, इसके कारण क्या होता है, उन लोगों को जो फियर है, एनिमल का जो फियर है टुवर्ड्स ह्यूमंस, वो खत्म हो जाता है, and slowly they start behaving more aggressively towards human beings. Now, this is the reason where it contributes to the habituation of carnivores to human presence. Now, if you go to option number P, it says the reduction in carnivores' instinctive fear response resulting from the reliance upon human provided food. This is the exact third paragraph of the lines that have been marked, which talks about this particular part. So, even if I point this particular line, when there are animal provided by people taking pictures with them or feeding them in natural settings. This is a particular part which talks about this answer. So question number 5, correct answer is option number D. Is everybody clear with question number 5? Now moving on to question number 6, it says, given the insight provided by Panterini's research and Wilkinson's statement, which of the following conclusions can be drawn about the relationship between landscape heterogeneity and human carnivore conflict? So, we can derive this answer very much from the last paragraph, which does talk about these two particular statements, heterogeneity and human carnivorous conflict. If we talk about this particular paragraph, what does it say? Let's go through the paragraph once again. The likelihood of human carnivore conflict appears to be higher in areas of low income countries dominated by vast rural landscape and farmland. According to Pantelini's research, there are lots of working landscapes in the global south that are really heterogeneous, that are interspersed with carnivore habitats, forests, and savannas, which creates a lot more opportunity for these encounters. Just statistics say. Now, this particular mixture creates a lot of particular attack between these people. Let us go to option number D. It says the diversity on interspersion of working landscape with carnivore habitats in rural areas increase the statistical probability of encounters between humans and carnivores. So question number 6, correct answer will be option number D. Now if we just go through all the options, option number A says low-income countries with vast contiguous wilderness areas are less prone to human carnivores conflict because these areas lack the human presence necessary for such encounters. So this does not kind of match with the given particular paragraph at all and can be eliminated. ऑप्शन नंबर बी जो है वो बोल रहे हैं लैंडस्केप हेटेरोजेनिटी कैरेक्टराइज्ड बाय मिक्स ऑफ farmlands and natural habitats inherently reduces the chances of human carnivore conflict. It doesn't inherently kind of reduce, it inherently increases and hence B contradict कर रहा है, तो ये भी नहीं होगा. C बोल रहा है homogeneous landscapes with uniform agricultural practices are more likely to experience high rates of human carnivore conflicts due to predictability of resources. Once again, ये ऑप्शन नंबर सी भी पैराग्राफ को contradict कर रहा है. It is not talking about homogeneous, but rather the paragraph is talking about heterogeneous. And hence, my correct answer for this one is option number D. Is everybody clear with question number 6? Last two questions. Question number 7 पे हम चलते हैं. Question number 7 says, which of the following, if false, would be inconsistent with the concerns raised in the passage regarding drivers of carnivore human conflict? Let's understand the question a bit clear. A, B, C, D में कौन सा वाला अगर गलत हुआ तो पैराग्राफ को वो कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट करेगा. Would be inconsistent with the concerns raised in the passage regarding drivers of carnivore human conflict. कौन सा अगर गलत हुआ. Let us go to this particular part, the second last paragraph of the penultimate paragraph. It says experts believe climate change also plays a part in escalation of human carnivore conflict. Now, the human carnivore conflict के लिए this particular climate change has been given as one of the reasons. Now, if we go to this particular option number 1, it says climate change has a negligible effects on the frequency of carnivore human interactions in affected regions. And this becomes false. The climate change has no particular effect, has a negligible effect on the negligible effects on the frequency of carnivore interaction on affected particular regions. Now, if I kind of change this to false, it will be inconsistent with the given paragraph. Now, question number 7. Once again, it is talking about अगर ये false हो गया तो this will kind of be inconsistent with the given paragraph. Now, if I tell you another particular part, come to this particular line, it says that but the correlation still needs to be ironed out. So it means climate change has had kind of high effect on the frequency of carnivores. देखिए इसको अभी proved नहीं है. This is not yet proved. So, but the correlation still needs to be ironed out, and hence this cannot be derived from the given paragraph. So option number A is the correct answer for question number 7. Is everybody clear with question number 7? Okay, moving on to the last question, which says, according to the passage, which of the following scenarios would most likely exacerbate or increase the frequency of carnivore human conflict? Now, what if carnivore human conflict कब बढ़ जाएगा? We have a lot of particular options given here. Option number A says, implementing food waste management strategies to preventing wild animals being attracted to human food sources. ये करेंगे, it will be it will not increase, it will decrease the particular human carnivore conflict. So option A cancel. Option B says addressing the impact of climate change on the availability of resources on wildlife. Though climate change has not been, climate change effect on human animals conflict has not yet been proved that much, but still we can say if we can do that, that will kind of work on its advantage only, and maybe carnivore human conflict will reduce. 3 says attempting to photograph wild animals from within secure viewing areas in national parks and protected zone. देखिए आपको यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा केयरफुल रहना है क्योंकि ये जो पिक्चर उठाने वाला बात बोला गया है, it is there, it is given in the paragraph, right? So if you go to the third paragraph itself, it says then there are animals that's proved by people taking pictures with them or feeding with them in natural settings. But option number C says attempting to photograph wild animals from within secured viewing areas. Secured viewing areas and natural settings दोनों अलग है, and hence option number C अगर करेंगे तो situation better होगा, खराब नहीं होगा. Now look at option number D. It says unleashing dogs by pet owners in areas with known high concentration of large carnivores. If this is done, then there can be a problem. If we go to the fourth paragraph, it says two of the most common risky behaviors are parents leaving their children to play outside intended and walking the unleashed dog according to the study. So this is one of the reasons which is most likely to increase this problem. And hence question number 8, correct answer is option number D. Okay, with this we come to the end of this two passages. Is everybody clear with all the particular questions and all the RCs that we have done? देखिए ये 2 आरसी उतना डिफिकल्ट नहीं है, तो इन माय ओपिनियन आपको ये 2 आरसी अटेम्प्ट करना चाहिए, एंड होपफुली you score well in this particular type of RCs. Thank you so much. We'll end the video here.